Hello, I was going to post a video of the crawler course I've been working on with some cool music in the background, but instead I'm going to fill the audio void with a story and some ambient music. I figure if you're really into off-road crawling in the 1/24th scale, then you can just turn my voice down and put on your favorite music while watching my superb driving. Or if you just woke up from some horrible nightmare and want to listen to a potentially vapid story from some random person to help chase away the demons from your subconscious, well then hey, I'm your guy. I have a flowchart of bullet points and some phrases I thought of, but for the most part, I am just winging the telling of this. I'm not really trying to censor myself either, so go ahead and assume this will be PG-13. None of the names will be changed, and 90% of this story is true. When I was 14, I was out one night with 3 of my friends in the old neighborhood, which was a generic middle-class suburban area, and we were just walking around. That's what we did, especially at night. Me, Dave, Tom, and Jerry. Yes, Tom and Jerry liked the cartoon. They almost shared the same dynamic because Jerry was he was a dwarf, he was small, and Tom was big. Dave was a wiry fellow, prone to mischief, but knowledgeable in the outdoors, and knew the neighborhood better than any of us. I like to egotistically think of myself as the leader, although I'm pretty sure nobody else did. I had a Commodore 64, so at the very least, I knew I was the computer guy. It was still summer, sort of fall, not quite leaf-changey, but you might put on a sweatshirt after the sun goes down. We weren't back to school yet, and we all snuck out late at night to walk around our neighborhood. Like I said, it's just what we did. Down the road from us was a public golf course, and I'm not sure what inspired us to go gallivanting about the greens because there was a major road that ran right through the course, and with it came an assortment of bright safety and streetlights, making anyone on the grounds at night stand out a bit even if you were dressed in the dark clothes. This fact often led us to pursue shenanigans in the adjacent woods that lined a large section of the course. Those woods connected to other patches of woods and stretches of green space and parks that spread like tendrils throughout the neighborhood. You could get to quite a few places in our neighborhood without having to travel outside the tree line. We could pass unseen along the sewer maintenance towpaths that ran through the woods, day or night, knowing where the logs or stones were to cross the various creeks, that sort of thing. You know, home territory. That probably made us cocky. It probably made us bold enough to venture out into the open space without fear of repercussions. There was a shack on the golf grounds that was often deadbolted and padlocked, but someone must have left in a hurry, for at midnight the door was ajar, the light on, inadvertently inviting 4 mischievous boys as moths to a flame. The first thing I saw in there was a panel of flipper switches, toggles, whatever. I'm assuming it was the first thing that everyone else saw too, because we rushed to be the one to flip the most switches. Just for some reason, that's what we did. After we got tired of that, Tom turned around and noticed the bigger switch. He flipped it and we heard the going on outside, the unmistakable sound of water. The sprinkler system. Ah. This golf course had some powerful sprinklers and plenty of them. I'm sure my memory is somewhat tainted and quite possibly wrong, but it sure seemed like those things were shooting out diagonally, almost matching the heights of the streetlights, rotating and doing things that sprinkler heads do. We naturally turned them all on, and then went to play in our artificial rainstorm. We were drunk with the power of the gods, the power of nature, and also the power of 3 Mickey Big Mouth malt liquors that we had shared between us. If it were not for the act of damaging property, this all would have been some nice, innocent fun, playing in the water like toddlers, but, well, Dave violently and effectively kicked the head off of one of the sprinklers. The water pressure just blasted that thing over our heads before we could even react, and the resulting geyser was more fantastic than the directed spray from when the sprinkler head was on. Well, everyone wanted to try that, and when I did not place my body to the side as much as the other lads did, resulting in the geyser blasting me right between the buttocks. I mean, right up center stage. If it were not for the sweatpants, I'm pretty sure I would have received a full anus-chafing enema in world record time. But, as it was, I just had the fabric shoved halfway up into my bowels. Yes, of course it was hilarious. I had to run back to the sprinkler shack to pull my sweatpants and boxer briefs out of my lower intestines. I managed to wring out a lot of the water and put them back on, which is fortunate because Tom ran by going, Dude, 5-0, 5-0, 5-0. Now, this might seem a little out of left field, but I need to make you aware of something. The suburb where I lived was not immune to the coke boom of the 80s, and there were in fact several movers and shakers living in our area. In later years, I would read about how those dealers would lead 2 lives, loving, working suburban husbands who like weekend cookouts by day, and criminal middlemen in unlit parking lots moving the white lines from one trunk to another by night. Our county had a task force set up, gathering evidence, trying to nab some people in the act. For weeks, they would stake out those unlit parking lots based on some tip, only to spend the night in impotence and boredom, adrenaline wasted. So I can only imagine how they all felt when, right before they wrapped up another uneventful night, they get a call about some noisy, screaming vandals at the nearby golf course. What a handy call to direct all your efforts and manpower. At the time, I obviously knew none of this. To me, it just seemed like a massively lopsided response to what was going on. It was an impressive response, I gotta tell you. It utterly scared the shit out of me. A dozen cars, black and whites, undercovers with lights attached, they all just manifested in various spots while we made a break for the tree line. I remember being really surprised that they were driving onto the golf course, like, hey man, you shouldn't be doing that. I, a vandal in progress, thought as I ran my soaking legs off. I had gotten the worst of the soakings, but the others were not exactly sans wetness, and we were all making some manner of squelching or farting noise as we ran, which was making us nervously laugh because we were high on the juice that is being chased by the cops. But there we were, this kind of flatulent, giggling mess of teenage limbs, a Voltron of vandalism, if you will, fleeing into the night. Tom and Jerry just disappeared. It was almost paranormal how well they escaped that evening. One minute they were in front of me in the woods, the next, gone. Now it could have been my imagination, but I think they left so fast there was a puff of smoke roughly in the shape of where their bodies once were, much like their cartoon namesakes. Dave and I had circled around to the thick brush at the base of one of the road bridges going over the creek. We were ensconced in the woods, and the cops that ended up on the bridge shining all their lights were directing their attention to the side we were not on. Home free, baby. Hey, you're looking in the wrong spot, you fucking dumb pigs! Burst out into the evening air, bouncing off the trees and the water and the stones of the bridge. Haha, you can always count on Dave to escalate the situation. He had also thrown a rock, which thankfully only blasted the bridge maybe icy sign, but it sure did make a lot of the officers on the bridge jolt in shock. I had just processed all this and turned wide-eyed towards Dave, only to find out that he too has the power of cartoons. Just disappeared into the night. Well, I certainly did not stick around. While I was running, it seemed like there was someone behind me. I really didn't stop to look. I just assumed. I tried to use the home field advantage and took some zigzaggy routes in and out of the tree line, between some houses along the creek, back into the woods, over the fence, and so on. I ended up hiding in a bush or some landscaping feature on the side of a house, a place I knew about from playing full neighborhood manhunt over the years. I couldn't run anymore. I had just settled down and was trying to control my breathing, figuring I would just hide here for the whole night if I needed to. And then I noticed that my body heat was evaporating the water on my sweatpants, sending little lines and clouds of steam out through the leaves into the night. I could see red and blue light reflections here and there, so I knew I had to do something about it. I quickly took off my sweatpants and my socks and threw them as close as I could to one of the trailheads in the woods, thinking maybe that would divert any pursuers, and then I went back to my new home in the bush wearing my moist boxer briefs and sneakers. None of this seemed weird to me at the time. To this day, I still find it a very logical course of action. I don't know how much time went by, but I heard the jiggly, clangy sound of a fat police officer with a full duty belt coming around the corner, so I held my breath and peered through the leaves. He shined his light around and it settled on my steamy sweatpants. For some reason, almost instantly, the light whipped around right to where I was hiding, right in my eyes. Freeze! Freeze! Don't move! Freeze! Well, actually, it was more like, freeze! Don't move! Freeze! Anyway, I burst from the bush towards the trail in all my slick, lanky, pale-legged glory. You ever laugh and cry at the same time? It's very weird. But I made it into the woods, my fuel tank topped off with the fear of repercussions. I made it away into the thick woods, repeating the earlier process of zigzagging around until the temporary fear energy left me. Honestly, at that point, I was so tired I was ready to give up, but Officer Butterball didn't follow me in there, I think. After a half hour of sitting in the dark by the creek, developing quite a chill, I crept through one of the woody tendrils to emerge at Dave's house where the rest of the gang was waiting to make fun of me in my underwear, the night's adventure over. The next day I went to the bush where I was hiding looking for my sweatpants because my mom would notice they were missing from the laundry and question me about them, but they were nowhere to be found. This bothered me, and, well, it still does to this day. Logically, it seems likely that some homeowner threw out the nasty, moist sweatpants near their property that they found, but there's a part of me that worries that it was taken in for evidence, my ass DNA all up in an evidence locker somewhere, with some ancient cop waiting for the break in the case of the golf course sprinkler vandals.